All right. Hello, everyone. Welcome to episode 12 of Brew FOs. Today, I am with Drew Mailloux. Is that how you pronounce your last name, Drew?
Oh boy, I think the actual French pronunciation is like, yeah, Mayu.
Am I
We need
saying it right? How do you
actual. I
say
think you might be. Yeah. We need an actual French person to tell me how to pronounce my own. But, but yeah, no, we always my family just butchers it and says Malix because we're
Mailloux?
just
Dude,
awful.
I was saying it that way for a while. Me and my wife,
Mhm.
we've been fans of you for a while, but you know, uh, we would say it that way. And then I looked it up and I was like, what's the right way to say? So I'm glad I asked you. So
Yeah, yeah.
Malix, I could just say Drew Malix.
Well, we say yeah, Malix, but really, I
Malix?
mean, it's wrong. It's just a made up, like we just say it a way that isn't real either. So really, I don't know. Correctness is a moving
Malix.
target. So yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Cool. Well, man, I have you know, I've been a fan of yours for a while. I've been a fan of Rishloo. I'm a fan of your voice. You're one of my favorite singers, so I really appreciate that you're doing this. And thank you for coming on and talking to me today. And cheers to you, my friend. I know you have a beverage with you, right?
Oh yeah. Cheers.
I just
To you.
want to
Yes.
cheers to you real
Cheers.
quick for coming on here.
Yeah, for sure.
So man, let's get into it. Who are
Mhm.
you, dude? Like you grew up in Seattle? Did you like where are you who
So
are you, man?
I grew up in like in a well, I was both born and then kind of lived the majority of my life in small towns in Washington. So
Okay.
Washington boy, lived here most of my life.
Yeah, yeah.
And let's see, I did spend some time for a while. The band was living together down in the Shoreline area, which is just kind of north of Seattle. And yeah, we did that for roughly 10 years. So, but I've lived most of my life in, Western Washington.
Okay.
So
And
yeah.
so growing up and stuff, how did you get into music? Like how did you where this voice of yours, like where the fuck did this shit come from, man?
So my parents were, my dad was a musician. And oh, speaking of cats, hey,
Oh, yeah, there we go. Hello. Cats are welcome. That's totally fine.
wow. So my dad was a musician. He was in a band when he was in his 20s,
Okay.
and more of like I don't know what they call it, like country rock kind of, like the Eagles, that kind of
Yeah,
thing.
yeah, yeah.
Uh, what else did they do? A lot of, I don't know, Bob Seger, that sort of stuff back in the day. And so he drove around in a school bus with his, his band, and the kind of they were mostly in the Western US, kind of trucking around in the, 80s, I guess, late 70s, early 80s, and where they go play like somewhere in Montana for a week at a time and then not get paid. And, it was apparently a great time. So yeah. But so I just kind of grew up around it. My dad was always singing, so I was, singing with him. And when we were driving around, I'd, go to work with him and stuff. And so I just kind of grew up singing, and then, playing. I started violin when I was like 4 years old. I did that for a while. Was not a huge fan of violin. But maybe now that I'm older, would, sometimes think about trying to get a handle on one again.
Have you picked it up at all? Was like when's the last time you picked up?
I I don't even really have one at this point. Like we might have one stashed away at my folks' house, but I'm not 100% sure.
Yeah.
Uh, and so it's one of those things. It's like I have this idea that when I have more space and to put things, I'd like to have kind of, it'd be nice to have a violin. It'd be nice to have like an actual piano. It'd be nice to have, some of these instruments that are a little not my. I mean, I'm not really an instrumentalist, but it'd be nice to have some other instruments around to screw with.
Yeah, and
But
stimulate your brain and make different pathways spark or
for sure,
whatever.
yeah, try different things, and yeah.
Yeah, so
But
wait, so would you ever go on those little tours with your dad when you were a kid? Like watch your dad play
oh no,
shows?
it was most of that. I was pretty young. Excuse me, when he stopped kind of doing that. So he was. I think it was really. I was probably like 3 years old around the time he
Okay.
kind of he kind of shut it down. My mom was at home with a kid, and like he's out whatever, gone all weekend or something. And she's kind of like, okay, well, this sucks, you know. Like, I'm just here doing single parenting, and you're out running around playing shows all the time. So yeah, that didn't last forever. But you know, and I think he got to a point where he was tired of it too. You know, he wanted to be home and, you know, being a dad and
Yeah.
doing that thing. And yeah, I mean, you know, I mean, I think you've been spent some time on the road, so you know, it has its goods, its ups and downs, and
Yeah.
yeah.
I
So
mean,
you may have spent more time on the road than I have. I don't know, you know. But
dude, I mean, I want to get into all that too.
yeah.
Um, just, you know, I'm kind of bummed because I mean, I don't know where you guys are at right now, or if the band's over with or what,
Mhm.
but I mean, we can get into that. But like, you know, I was hoping to see you guys at least one day, you know, and then,
Yeah.
but I'm glad that I have all those videos, and
Mhm.
you know, there's so many videos of you guys playing live, and so like,
There was a period there where we were, you know, really trying to record everything. We had our buddy Daniel Zetterstrom, who's this amazing photographer, and then got into video later on. Did a lot of that stuff back in the day, where, you know, some of it was us just throwing up a camera and just recording just to have video of things, you know. But he would come on a lot of those trips with us and help do it. He was so a huge part of kind of anything that came out of that was like visually really good was probably something he deserves some credit for. But
well,
yeah,
thank you, Daniel. You
yeah,
know, shout out to Daniel.
yeah,
Cheers to Daniel Zetterstrom out there.
yeah.
So,
Cheers, Danny.
dude, that's rad. So like, did you meet these guys like in high school, or like how did you?
So yeah, the what do we have here? So we have this local music magazine called The Stranger,
Okay.
and ooh, I mean, when it was Craigslist was a thing when
Yeah.
I applied for Rishloo, but you know, I don't think that's where it was. I think it was an ad in The Stranger, and they, you know, because they would just let you put in want ads and whatever, and a lot of bands did that. And I was in community college, I think, at the time, and I just saw this, you know, there was another band that I remember I talked to first, and I listened to some of their stuff, and I was like, no. And then I went and kind of checked out some Rishloo songs, and they were like, oh, can you come down for an audition? And, you know, the rest is kind of history. It was weird. I went and played, I think I auditioned with a Matchbox 20 song, because that was that was the most hardcore thing that I, you know, knew at that time.
Yeah. Yeah.
Coming growing up in a small town and stuff.
Dude,
And stuff.
Rob Thomas he's got some vocals, man. Those are,
I mean, he's still going, you know. Like,
yeah, he can kill it, man.
yeah, yeah, it's good for him.
Yeah.
But yeah, so you know, I auditioned, and they're like, okay, this guy's pretty good. He's got some interesting tastes and popular music that we might have to work around, you know.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, so I had to kind of get converted, you know, pulled into the dark side before I could really function adequately in Rishloo, I think, to an extent. You know, they're gonna hate me for saying, oh yeah, I made you evil or something. You know?
So
But
this was
yeah.
after high school then, like, so like this
It
is like,
was like right. I think I was 19 when I auditioned. So I
okay.
had, yeah, just graduated not long before, you know, within, I don't know, 6 months or a year prior. So
Okay.
yeah. So I was yeah, I didn't know any of them. We literally all just met each other, you know, well, Jesse wasn't there at this time. We started with a different drummer initially named Tyler, and he was with us for the first album and a little bit beyond, and then decided he wasn't really mainly wasn't really into the whole touring thing, I think. And, you know, I
Yeah.
was like, I don't really, you know, I don't want to go down this life path where I'm just spending all my time on the road, I think, you know. So um anyway, and then so we auditioned and we found Jesse, and Jesse was like the first person we tried out. So that worked out, you know.
Yeah.
It was we're like, well, I mean, geez, I guess we should probably audition other people, but I don't know if we need to, you know. And I don't think we ever did. I think it was just that was that. But
Yeah. Good choice.
yeah,
He's a hell of a drummer, man.
he's phenomenal. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So
So what's going on, dude? What is it over? Is it over? Is it
well, I mean,
completely over?
I mean, I think of all the questions, I figured you'd probably bring, you know, mention this one I probably thought the most about, because I know it's on everyone's mind. I mean, it's on my mind to some extent, I think, you know, like where not whether is it over or not, but just kind of how do we, how do we get the most out of this period in our lives and kind of just where we all are. When we were all living together, it was really easy for, the four of us to just, I think we would practice usually 3 nights a week for, a couple hours each night, if not more. Not always, but we were pretty religiously devoted to that schedule. And then we were playing shows somewhere between, I don't know, 2 to 6 times per month. I think 6 or 8 would be on the really high end. That was pretty rare, like where we'd have, I don't know if we ever had 4 weekends in a row where we had, 2 shows each or something. But
Yeah.
there was a time, I guess, just, there was a time where we were a lot more active. We were a lot closer together. And like, I know for myself, like my biggest weakness or challenge in a lot of ways is just discipline. I suck at discipline. I'm not good at like, creating a plan and sticking to it and being diligent about, making it move forward on a regular basis. But so I think there's some of that, and there's, we've got some things we're trying to do to help mitigate that challenge of not having the physical proximity anymore. So, because Dave and Sean still live relatively close to each other, but Jesse now lives in Montana.
Okay.
And I live about an hour away from Sean and Jesse. So it's a little tough for us to physically meet up and actually do rehearsals. And also just with, families and everybody's kind of got to coordinate much more complicated schedules. We all have, full-time jobs that have, kind of taken up more and more of our lives, I feel like, as things have gone on. So we're definitely not done. That's something we've talked about numerous times. And I think it's just, but the pace at which we're going is, completely different than it was even, probably 10 years ago. Just, a lot of life happens in the meantime. So I think it's, we have some things that we are working on. Nothing that's like really finished enough or really complete enough to share with anybody at this point. But there are a few ideas in the works, and I think we all would really like to get at least one more album out. If not, in a general sense, we've all kind of agreed like, hey, as long as we can all just kind of keep going and we have the desire to do this and move forward and we feel interested in creating art together, then, there's not any reason for it to end. But it's definitely not the same, and we're definitely kind of wrestling with, how far do we go from here? How much time and energy can we devote to it and then how do we kind of establish some kind of pathway forward towards, getting some of these things done that we want to do. So it's a lot of us kind of having to work on our own and, invest the time individually. Which again, like for me is tough, it's just like, I feel like, no, by the time I finally got time to do it, it's like, okay, I'm ready. I want to work on something. I'm motivated. And then like your recording program doesn't work, or, your microphone won't connect for some reason. And you're just like, oh God, like just, I'm, by the time I'm, done fighting with it half an hour later, I'm like, I forgot what I was excited about. So I don't know, there's, I think, in this huge, long, rambly explanation I'm giving you, which I should have warned you ahead of time. I'm notorious for.
No, it's fine.
I think there's been a change for me, and just like my perspective on the world is a lot harder to suss out than it was when I was in my early 20s. Like, I guess I feel like it was easy to just be like, oh, well, everything can change. We just have to do this thing, like, or people just have to believe, or people just have to have hope. And like the whole world can magically transform. And while I still believe that, I think like, I don't come at the art from as maybe not, I wouldn't say naive a place, but as, simple, I guess. Like my view isn't as straightforward as it used to be. And so I think it's like, for me, I'm kind of trying to deal with some of these more complex themes about, internal contradiction, and like, are we, you know, how do I feel about this person that I was 20 years ago, and what his dreams were, and what his ambitions were, and have, you know, which of those things I've kind of seen come to fruition in some way or another, which things I still struggle with internally, you know, which things I still want to change about myself. So I don't know. I feel like there's a lot of so much depth that um that sounds arrogant. Like, I don't mean like, oh, it's so deep. Like, no one's it's so deep, no one's gonna ever understand it. But just that there's it's more layered, I guess. Like, there's different layers of approaching the art and what you feel about it and the perspectives that you want to share, and that reflection time that you've had on the past about, you know, what things have I said before, and now that I look back on those, some of those things, you know, what things do I feel happy about? What do I feel proud of? What do I feel like, oh, you know, this line was a little silly, or this idea was maybe not bad, but not something I would be interested in doing now, you know? So I don't know. I think there's just a lot of, it's, it's transformed so much as a process, and the way that we do things and the amount of time that we're able to commit to it together. Um, and, you know, especially that big, being in that gyre of all of us living together and just kind of having to, you can't ever walk away from it for too long, you know, like, because somebody's going to come back in and be like, hey, we're going to practice tonight, we got to do this, what's happening with this song, what's, you know, what's, whereas, and like, that stuff gets old after a while too, you know, that's the part of it that makes it feel like work sometimes. It's like, hey, somebody's hounding me for results here, you know, and it's like, but that's the only way things get done too. So, you know, it's we're definitely still going forward. It's a, you know, it's a struggle in some ways that it wasn't a struggle before. But
Yeah.
I also am really optimistic in a lot of, like, there's not really any technological barriers to getting it done. You know, we use things like you might be familiar with what is this thing called? Spotify makes it. Soundtrap, I think, is what they call it. And it's just
Actually, I
like,
haven't heard. Actually, I haven't heard about
oh,
that.
so it's like an online garage band kind of. So
Okay.
it's not great for every, like, it's rough to record vocals on because of the internet delay, you know. I think I've heard that Apple does encoding in a different way that mitigates that a lot better, but I do it on a PC, so I don't know if that's really the case or not. Um, but technologically, it's like there's not really anything stopping us from going, hey, here's this idea I just recorded, boop, it's online, you can go take it, you know. So we do have a lot of things going for us. I think it's just a matter of everybody's trying to kind of find their own, you know, feet to walk forward on at this point, you know, and we're all still headed in the same direction, but we're not just, you know, we're not literally in the bus together anymore going, you know,
Yeah.
hey, point A to point B to point C, you know. It's just, so I don't know. Like I said, I think there's a lot of things still to say, and things that are worth exploring. And, you know, I it's just kind of, it feels like standing in front of a tidal wave sometimes, you know, like, it's
Yeah,
just like
man.
so much, like, how do you pick out, you know, okay, like, I like this and I like this and I want to focus on this, and this doesn't really, you know, and like, you want to have the whole, you want to capture the whole thing, you know, really, like, I have this artistic idea, I see the whole thing coming at me, I want all of it, I just want to wrap it up and grab it, and but you never can. It's always just an exercise in like picking out, you know, the diamonds in the rough, and then having to accept what you left behind, you know.
Yeah, man. What about, so like, is it also, I mean, you're older, you're wiser, all you guys are older and wiser now too. And
Mhm.
but like, you know, your body of work is it's so, it's incredible. And you know, people on watching BrewFOs, if you guys haven't checked out Rishloo yet, check it out. Um, but sometimes that's intimidating too. Like, you know, I've put out something in the past and I'm like, oh shit, that's so rad. And then I'm like,
Yeah.
I'm stoked on it. And then I'm like, how am I going to make something even? And you're trying to like fight to make something better than the last thing you did. And so I'm
I,
sure that's also a tidal wave, you know?
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, I think we all, you know, it's any of us that value the art that we've done, you know, like, I think part of like being true to that is being able to move to grow beyond it, you know, not to say that it's like, you know, now is better and then was worse or something, but it just,
Yeah.
what you have done informs what you do going forward. And so, you know, I think that's definitely a major challenge. And just, you know, like how do you, you know, connect with these new ideas and you know, branch out going forward. But
Yeah, I'm glad that technologies makes it easier to send like riffs to each other, or like you can send
yeah.
ideas and stuff. That's getting a lot easier. But yeah, like you're saying, like when you're not there's something also, you know, about being in a room and jamming it out together where you can figure stuff out like that. Or like, ah,
Yeah.
actually that sucks, try something else. Or you know, or you feel
Yeah.
it out different. And like that's what I missed. You know, I don't know if this was for you guys too, but when the pandemic hit, that kind of
Mhm.
like just put everybody kind of just on like, what? And then
Yeah.
all of us were trying to figure out how to send stuff to each other, and like it killed a lot of bands, it killed a lot
Yeah.
of touring, you know, all that stuff
Yeah.
just
Oh
changed
yeah.
everything. So
I remember thinking that when because I think we had I think we might have sold our bus that we had shortly, not too long, maybe not shortly, but not, excuse me, too long before the pandemic started. And I remember at one point getting together, we're talking, or you know, we probably just had like a Zoom meeting or something, but you know, and being like, man, I'm glad we don't have that thing just sitting there, you know, because it'd just be like, we, you know, when it started, it's like, we don't know how long this is going to go on. Like well, maybe this will be the rest of our lives, you know, we'll just be living in lockdown for, you know, or 10 years or
yeah,
how it be, like nobody knew. So, you know, I was kind of glad we were able to get rid of that thing. But yeah, COVID was, you know, again, like for us, it was kind of, we were already, you know, in a situation where it was a lot different than it had been in the past, but it certainly didn't help. I think we might have, you know, we had gotten our work exercise space all kind of sorted out and cleaned up, and we had to do some renovation for that. And then, you know, I think we were kind of getting ready to make a little bit of a push, and then COVID happened, and it's like, okay, well, now we're, you know,
yeah,
nobody can afford to get sick and, you know, play with it. So take
yeah,
chances. Um, so yeah, that was a bummer. But
yeah, yeah, for sure, for everyone, right? Like,
yeah,
oh
right.
God.
But yeah.
Oh, yeah, well, dude, I'm stoked though that, I mean, that's a yes that we might get some more Rishloo, but like for you, I mean, everyone, you heard it from him. But like, uh, you yourself as an individual, are you gonna do anything musically by yourself? Like, are you gonna put out songs by yourself? Or are you gonna, you know?
it, it's another one of those things where I've always felt like I get pretty much most of what I want to get out of music through Rishloo, you know. So if I'm going to be devoting time towards that, you know, creative aspect of my life, then I'm probably doing it for the band first. Um, if, you know, at some point in the future that isn't the situation anymore, you know, and the band doesn't work out for some reason, and we do decide that we're not going to go forward, then, you know, it would probably be something that I would explore more. But it's, I don't know. I know for myself too, like, uh, I just, the idea of going through all of the work that surrounds being in the band and playing on a regular basis and all that, you know, it's, I guess I would say, you know, it's like almost like having two separate jobs, like writing music and then performing music, you know, is
Hmm.
it's like, okay, well, I, you know, to work two more full-time jobs. And then if you do your own stuff on top of that, it's almost like a third, you know? So I think for me, it's just kind of, I don't feel like I'm missing out on anything by not really kind of doing stuff on my own. And if I ever felt strongly that I were, then I would kind of, you know, bring that up to the guys and see about, you know, and maybe decide to go kind of pursue something on my own. But it's just, it's not really ever come up, and I don't really have I'm not really jonesing to go work with other people. I'm a difficult person to work with, and I think I've learned that over the years with working with these guys is I not always, but I can be, and I think there's some truth to we joke about it, like especially when we were younger that I was, singers are prima donnas, but I think there's some truth to it, and especially when I'm like cranky and tired and, like I've been in a show for 15 hours, I don't know, maybe I am kind of hard to deal with, but
Well,
so,
I have a question about that. I don't
yeah,
know, like if I'm wrong, like let me
Mhm.
know. But what I get from you guys too, I mean, there's not a lot of interviews with you guys.
Oh
There's
yeah,
no nothing out there like that. You
yeah,
guys seem like, you know, it's not you're not a band that really likes the attention on yourselves. It's more about the music and the art and all of
yeah,
that.
yeah, definitely. I think there was, when we were younger, I think there was, especially for me, there was a huge interest in like I was watching this interview with Jon Stewart was interviewing George Carlin. And it's an old one that I saw on YouTube the other day. And Carlin was saying, what got him into comedy was what did he say? He was just doing it at school. They didn't have grades at the school that he went to, but he got what do you call all the A's, like affirmation, attention, approval. Da, da, da. So it was, and when I was young, I feel like that was, music was one of those things for me where it was like, okay, I can go do this thing, and people are like, whoa, look at that. And and I was for a while, it's like that's great, like people like me, they're interested in what I'm doing, like, and then at a certain point, you kind of start to ask yourself, like, why, like, what am I doing that's so interesting? Does it merit this degree of attention? And do I, how do I justify that to some extent?
Yeah.
Um, like you know, especially compared to the art, like I feel like the art is like much better than I am, like the art is better art than like I am like a human being,
Hmm.
so there's times where it's like, which isn't to say like I think I'm a shitty, terrible person or something, I'm not perfect either, but like the art that I have made, I feel like is better than I don't know, is more than myself. Um, and so for me to kind of get attention is kind of funny in a way to me because I'm like I don't know. It's like a really pretty flower grows out of the ground and you fixate on the soil that it was planted in or something. It's like I to some extent I just feel like, I was there when it happened. I did participate in the creation of this, but at most I was, a fourth of it in terms of the other people in the band that, were involved in the creative process. Um, and also I feel like I've always felt like art is when it becomes extremely deliberate, I don't know that it's as artistic anymore. There's for me always been a need to kind of let it do its own thing, and like there's a kind of a back and forth exchange with the things you're trying to create. And if you allow it to have its own energy, its own, atmosphere, its own motivation. Like I don't know. I've always kind of felt like good art is almost animate, and so if you engage within that dynamic, it's more like it reminds me of being in high school and jazz band and like some jam room with a bunch of other musicians and we're all just playing. Like I was I'm a part of this, all of these things that are going on that create this end result, and I might be the voice that is mixed in most prominently in that final composition. But everything, if when I really break it down, I feel like a much smaller piece of the whole uh, than, I feel like a lot of people perceive um, artists to be. I don't know. Just I, I can take ownership, but I don't know. I don't feel like I made it in the same sense that it's like you take pieces of wood and hammer something together, and now you've got, you make a box, and you're like, here, I've got a box. I made this
Yeah.
box. There you go. It's like you end up with something, and you're like, well, I did that, and I did this thing, and I remember when we did, but like, where did this guitar part that just kind of came out of nowhere come from that led us down this whole other path, or this drum thing that Jesse did, or this different bass line that Sean pulls out? Like, you get that, what's, I guess, like a all of us going, this kind of genesis of I'm trying to find a good word, like synthesis, I guess, of these four different people all kind of trying to do that same thing. And I don't know, like, the more you allow the art to kind of go its own route, I just feel like the more each individual's contribution is less in some ways, like I don't know, it's got a life of its own. And that's, as I get older, I feel like it has more of a life of its own, not less. And it becomes more about me trying to understand what the art wants and what my place in it is, than to try and like tell it where to go.
Yeah.
I feel like when I was younger, it was much more, I want to write something that's heavier. I want to write something, I want to sing the highest note possible, that, or I want to do some really crazy thing that, that demonstrates my talent in some way. And now it's more like, well, I've demonstrated my talent in the past in some ways. And there's some of those things that I honestly don't know if I can do anymore. Like, there's parts of songs like, this is going to bum everybody out, but like Feather Gun in the Garden of the Sun, the chorus of that song is sung at such a difficult part of my register for me, and so full voiced the way that I sung. I was like 24, I think, when we recorded it.
Yeah.
And I was in fantastic shape. We were playing, I was singing 60 hours a month or 80 hours a month or something. When you add it all up, I was always singing at a high intensity level. And even then that song was tiring, but I could get through a set and it would be okay. And now it's like, man, you get to the second chorus of that, and I'm just like I'm literally gonna die. So that's something too, is it's like, even if I wanted to play shows right now, like, it's just not in the cards. I need to go. It's like, I feel like I need to hire one of those, like, like I'm training for a Marvel movie or something.
Yeah,
like,
yeah. No, for sure, man.
Okay, yeah.
Dude, when you like some of these guys are getting up there now too, and they haven't taken care of their voice, but the ones that have taken care of their voice, and they're still trying to find a way to keep doing the things that they did before, bands I look up to. So we all still appreciate it though. It's like still cool. Yeah. Like what can, like, even Pearl Jam's coming out with a new album, I think, this month. And or is it, maybe they're coming out on 420 actually, but they just put out a new single. And I was you hear Eddie and it's like, damn, dude, that Eddie's still going for it. Like, he's still doing it, but like, they're not getting any younger. And some of the stuff he used to sing back in the day, it was like, holy shit, dude, that guy's going. Like, I don't know if that guy can do it when he's 60s or 70s. I don't know when they're going to stop. Or
the fact that they still go out there at all, just blows my mind. I think that's, I think any of us would be great, especially at that level. It's like you go. That was one of the things I always wanted. It was like, oh, if we ever get to like that Pearl Jam level, like, I was like, I want to just do stuff like, we have this really cool venue in Seattle called the Paramount. And I'm like, I would be, rather than like go play some huge stadium, like, let's just rent out the Paramount for like 2 weeks straight, or something like that, and just be there for, take 2 nights off every week or something, but be there like, 12 out of 14 days or something, and just have a big long set, let people come, whatever. And yeah, you can't get, a bazillion people in there, but like, we saw actually, yeah, all of us in the band saw Flaming Lips there some years ago, and that was it was such a cool show. Like, just, and they were doing their whole, they have a crazy show with all their giant inflatable stuff and laser bubbles, and I don't even remember what all of it was, but yeah, I don't know where I was going with that. Totally sidetracked myself.
No, just saying that'd be something cool, like, that you guys could do. Like, if I mean, like what you're saying, like what U2 is doing right now with the Sphere, you know, like, those guys are getting up there too. Like,
Oh, dude.
and
I mean,
you know,
and the Stones and all they're
yeah,
still,
they're
yeah,
still doing it, dude.
it's
But
so
like,
crazy.
you know, they have to, you know, mitigate too. Like, you know, Bono doesn't sound like he did when he was 20,
Oh, oh yeah,
but he still
yeah.
sounds good. He still
No,
sounds fucking because he's taking care
yeah,
of himself,
and
you
I
know?
think that's, that's what's cool about getting to that stage of things too, is you can incorporate so many other cool things, visual stuff, and nowadays, I mean, holograms and lasers and freaking they've got, I mean, there's that one thing I've seen floating around the internet where it's like some giant robot hologram thing over this festival that's just like looming over everybody, and I'm like, oh my God, that would be, can't
What
imagine,
about the
like,
band?
yeah, yeah. I mean, well, at a certain point, it's like like we saw Perfect Circle years ago, probably like
Yeah,
2000, I think 2007, and it was at this Tacoma Dome in Seattle, or Tacoma, and they, even then they were, I don't know, in their 40s, early 40s, maybe most of them,
yeah,
and they weren't, nearly as active as some of them have been in the past. And like, they weren't like a super crazy band on stage or anything, but they made these really cool like trees that were all over the stage that had these weird lighting effects, kind of I think they were just full of LEDs and stuff. So the whole kind of stage would pulse and you get these, cool, it's almost kind of like a movie, or, like a theater set kind of a
yeah,
vibe,
yeah,
you know. And it's like, I think there's, you start integrating that stuff as, and then as by the time you get older, it's kind of more like, okay, the band's there and, people can see them, but, there's also this whole immersive environment, like I think that was kind of what I wanted to do, was eventually get to a point where like a place like that, you could like take it over and decorate it, like turn it into a, like a big, I don't know, 4,000 person venue, spend day, bringing a team to like convert it in, like they do with like haunted houses and stuff, like convert it into some crazy, whatever your theme is, and like
yeah,
people come and, you spend your evening not just watching the show, but like navigating this cool, weird ass environment, where, I don't know, all the walls are LEDs, or, like there's, the floor looks like the ceiling or something. I don't know. You do some crazy ass shit, just mess with people, and but you give them this whole freaking experience that they don't forget, rather than just more than just a show. I don't know,
yeah,
but
yeah, man. You know, I think just of all artists, yeah, as we you know get wiser and hopefully we're getting wiser as we grow older.
hopefully.
Yeah, hopefully. Some of us aren't. There's a lot of us that aren't. Um, but yeah, and then just taking care of your instrument, or
That's a tough
whatever
one.
instrument. Yeah, it's really, especially for a vocalist. I mean, because our shit is, we can't change our guitars, our vocal cords. You can't change those
Yeah,
strings.
give it another decade or two. That just be able to go to Tesla and get your your box
God,
cords swapped out. Some
dude,
crazy stuff like that.
probably, man. I mean, that's like so as an artist too, and you guys, all of you guys are artists, and you're definitely like it's crazy, like nowadays too, how the record labels and the algorithms and everything, like it's
Mhm.
forming more and more. Like I think we were warned about this, like, and then now it's just like we're in it now, where it's
Oh
like
yeah.
everything starts sounding the same, and there's the verse and the chorus, and here
Mhm.
comes this, and it's coming, and here comes the drop and all this. And
Yeah.
that's one of the reasons I can never give up Rishloo, and a lot of other bands, is because you my wife and I this week were like, all right, every night when we go to bed, let's just put on headphones and let's listen, through the albums. And
Mhm.
when we're listening to you guys, it's like even though I've heard the songs before, it's like you forget. I'll forget. I'll be like, where are they going here? Where are you
Yeah.
going here? And it almost feels like it's a living, breathing
Yeah.
entity. And like how you were talking about, like the flower growing out of the dirt or whatever. Like,
Yeah.
there's a part of me too that like I didn't want to meet you, even though like I really wanted to meet you, but I
Yeah.
didn't want to meet you because there's that mystery.
Oh
there's
yeah,
that, and you know, like
highly
James Cameron.
discourage it.
Where you said?
It's
Sorry.
gonna highly discourage people meeting that they like. It's always
Yeah.
disappointing. Yeah,
No, dude. Like I'm so glad we got to meet today. But like, you know, I love the mystery of it, you know, and that makes
yeah,
it more of art. And you know, bands that are on labels today too, they don't have you know, a lot of labels are really like, you got to do this picture, you got to have this and this and
yeah,
this.
yeah.
And if you guys are just doing your own fucking thing, you know, that it's, I think one of the reasons like you guys aren't touring like Foo Fighters or Pearl Jam or whatever right now is probably because you guys are real artists, you know?
Well, there's been the rare occasions where we've kind of had more, interactions with people that are more, I guess, involved in the industry, or kind of maybe could have pushed us in that direction a little bit. Some of that stuff did come up, like some of their first concerns are like, well, you guys should be doing this, you should be playing these cities, you should be, your singer should look like this, he needs to present himself this way, and some of those criticisms are not like entirely wrong either, like there's some of that stuff that I remember hearing and being like, okay, well, I see where they're coming from. But it does, like I think about it with like I watch a lot of YouTube artists, or not YouTube artists, but just people like I don't know, like watch like martial arts guys, and I watch. You're probably familiar with the Y Files, I'm guessing, because of the Brew. Or do you watch the Y Files?
I do not actually. I will write this down.
So the Y Files is kind of one of those. I guess that's a lot of UFOs, a lot of extraterrestrial, ancient history, weird historical mystery type of stuff.
Yeah.
Kind of like the old, like the History Channel would have the ancient UFOs or ancient aliens or
ancient
whatever.
Aliens. Yeah.
It's kind of it's like that. It's like that, but not that memey. Like he tries to say at the end of that every episode, like, okay, this part is kind of sketchy. We can't really, verify that this is real. We don't really, but it's a great story and maybe there's more to it, So he does kind of try to be fair about like not just selling you some crazy thing that's obviously made up by some person.
Wait, is that the guy with the talking goldfish?
Yes, yeah, goldfish.
Dude, okay, I didn't know the name of it.
It's called
Y-Files. Yeah, that guy rips. Yeah. Okay.
I like, cool. Because here, I feel like I'm that, I kind of have that same interest in it where it's like, I maintain a healthy degree of skepticism, but at the same time, I'm like, I'm fascinated by it, and I'm a huge Star Wars, Star Trek fan, so I'm like, there's a part of me that's like, I want it to be, dude.
Live long and prosper.
I want it to be, but I want it to be real, to some extent. So it's like, I also have to try to, I try to take my own biases into consideration when I have an interest in that sort of thing too. But yeah, that's a great one. But anyway, I guess I was talking about YouTube and the algorithm and all that stuff and just, how, that feels more and more restrictive all the time. It's like the content that people are allowed to post, and it's getting to the point where it's like, I think the newest thing is like you can't show anything like an explosion. You can't show. They kind of keep adding these little things that can potentially trigger your video to get demonetized and so on. And it's it's a weird, like I was thinking about that today, just like it's YouTube is almost, or YouTube presenters are almost starting to feel like they're using the same script, but or general, like setup, because they almost have to an extent, it's like I don't know, it just is, it feels more and more sterile kind of.
Yeah. Dude,
and
we were watching it. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
No, you're good. I would just keep going if you didn't, so please. No. And I'd never end. Yeah.
We were just watching an interview, one of our favorite shows called Need to Know, and no shame to Bryce Zabel out there, but Bryce Zabel was talking to Ross Coulthart, and Ross Coulthart's an investigative journalist from Australia, and Ross just drops. Yeah, he's one of the guys like really big right now with the UAP UFO thing and trying to help Congress figure out what's going on and us figure out what's going on. But he dropped, he'll just be like, yeah, what the fuck are these guys doing? And Bryce is like, oh man, you've cussed like 6 times in this interview, and he's like writing it down. And I'm like, oh god, what's he doing? And then I started realizing that too, is like people are like not cussing on
Yeah.
interviews, and I'm like, wait, we can't talk?
No, and that's the thing too. Like, I mean, you know, you think about it, I was considering asking you before we started, you know, like, okay, I was, you know, do we need to kind of have certain restrictions about if I swear a bunch, you're gonna have to go back and like trim it out later, you know. Not that I
No.
was to go on some, you know, tirade of cursing or anything. But yeah, it really is because I am also, you know, I'm one of those people that I like to throw a few curse words in there here and there. And I think that it can be done in a way that is you know, cursing is never really tasteful, I guess, you know, but like it can be done in a way that's not offensive or, you know, like derogatory towards someone or intended to hurt somebody.
Yeah.
And especially, you know, between well-intentioned adults who are choosing to have a communication with each other, like I just that kind of it blows me away that we care about that shit. You know, it's like who can okay, like if you don't want to watch you and I say shit and fuck to each other, then go watch something else. That's totally you don't need to like, you know, file a report or, you know, like try to have us, you know, killed in the street or something like that. Like it's you know, so there's some I get it. Like there's some stuff where it's like, okay, yeah, I think there's some boundaries that should exist in a functioning society. But like shit damn fuck, like
Dude, you just reminded me when I was a 13-year-old Christian kid, and I went out into a park nearby, and there were rusty CDs and stuff all just thrown out on the grass. And one of the CDs I pulled out was Ice-T, and I was like, Ice-T. I'm like, I've seen him on TV before and stuff. And I'm like, oh, and I was like, you know, didn't tell my parents, and I put it in. And it's I can't remember the name of the album, but it starts off with him going, you know, warning if you're offended by words like, and then he just lays it out, and there's no music, it's just him going like shit, fuck, bitch, and just like going off, and I'm like, whoa, you know, like my hair's blowing in the wind. But yeah, anyways,
I miss those days. I miss those days. It was just, you know, I found one of those. I think I found it like an STP cassette out in my shed. Like we moved into this house when I was, I don't know, in like 5th grade, and we're going through this old shed, and we find this cassette, and I was like Stone Temple Pilots. But at the time, that was, I mean, I think like, you know, well, Black Hole Sun's been on the radio forever. So but I was gonna say, I think that was when Black Hole Sun was like still relatively new, you know, and getting played.
Soundgarden?
Yeah, Soundgarden. Yeah, Soundgarden. Yeah. But you know, because I just remember that being on the radio and then finding this, and I was like, wait, I know this band. I've heard them on, you know, whatever it was, probably Cube back then or whatever, you know, like when they actually used to still play rock music.
Yeah,
dude. I guess you would know. Cube is a Seattle-based radio station, but now they're all, I think they're, God, I'm so old, I don't even know. But they switched to hip hop at one point, and then I think they stayed there. But they used to do alternative at one point too. So,
what's that? There's one there. Like, is it KEXP?
KEXP. Yeah.
Would you guys ever do something like that? Would Rishloo ever, like, where they do the live YouTube? Who was just on there? Quicksand was just on there, and it was like cool as hell.
So I don't really think they were at some point in the last 10 or 15 years. I could be completely wrong about this. I'm just guessing based on what I think I recall. That they didn't really have a performance space to the extent that they do. Like they have more of an actual venue space now. And I think they used to do more just like a radio studio kind of type thing. But we were, I don't know, that was a tough one. KEXP, we did try to get involved with them on a few occasions over the years. It was tough. I feel like when we were trying to connect with KEXP was right around the time that bands like Mumford & Sons were really getting big, and like the Postal Service was kind of on the decline, but that was kind of still going. And so you have this kind of, you know, these genres that were, I don't really know even what you would call that stuff exactly, but different enough from us that they're like, what? You know, like we don't
who's
really...
this? It's totally opposite. Yeah.
So, and it's not to say that KEXP doesn't have like a diverse list of music, that they do have a lot of different programs that I think they try to present different things, but it also felt like it just felt a little clicky. Like it was like there's um, certain styles that they really wanted to fixate on, and other ones that they were like, I don't know. It might have been that even like it almost felt like the entire genre, like they felt certain genres were already getting too much attention. And so they were like, even though we weren't mainstream, we were kind of lumped in with the mainstream. We weren't new or cool enough to kind of, I don't know, I don't really know but we did kind of try to connect with them, and it just never, like, we sent them CDs a few times, and I think eventually, I don't remember if we ever heard back or they just told us no, but it's been a long time since we really, but back when we were more active in the scene and trying to, we did try to get involved with them somewhat. But it is a cool, their program is rad, and we definitely would have loved to be more of a part of it. But
what if they hit you up today and they were like, "Hey, will you guys come do 4 songs?" Would you guys do 4
I mean,
songs and do it?
I mean, that's
live shit is pretty cool that they do.
Yeah, and that's one of those things where it's like, that would be a tough one. We'd have to be like, okay, we plan this 6 months out, minimum or something.
Yeah.
A year maybe would be better. I don't know. It's just getting back into shape to actually play live. Like, there's the physical aspect of it, which I'm less concerned about, just in terms of, if I can get myself into the gym on a regular basis. You just have to put in the time, and I don't need to look like a freaking supermodel. I just need to have good enough cardio to be able to do it. But the singing aspect, I'm more nervous about, just because I've never been so out of practice for such a long time. And I'm just used to being able to walk up and just go, and just go crazy and belt, and just like, and now it's like if I sing in the car, sometimes it's like, okay, well, I have to be careful. I'm starting to make myself sore, and that's not really something I dealt with to the same degree when I was younger. And so now I'm feeling like I kind of almost have to rehab myself up to being able to play live again. So it's something I would definitely do it in the future. But it's just, it's not something I can just be like, yeah, let's go, like it's, and I think that's part of it too, is it's just really, like I was saying earlier, it's, if you're writing, you don't really have time to prepare for performance. They're often, if I'm playing a show, I'm practicing stuff that we've already done. I'm trying to get back up to speed on it to be able to pull it off consistently and be physically to do it. And that's a completely different process than sitting down and trying to be creative and hash stuff out and go over it 50,000 times, to try and make progress in the next part of the song. Like, so I just don't, I know that I don't really have the time to do both of these things simultaneously. So I think for me, it's kind of and I think for all of us, it's more of a, once we can get more content ready, more material actually out there, and we're getting it to a place where it's almost, it's close to being ready, and we're confident in what we've come up with and the way it's sounding, then I think we would look at that. And it's something we've considered too, like we just even playing a show to, just to get ourselves just further practice, like we've talked about it, like we could just book one in some random place and not tell anybody, and just go play there, tell a handful of friends or something, and just have fun. But until we've had an opportunity, I mean, I think that's part of it. Like we have to do a mini camp of like the old days, we're gonna go play some random bars out in the middle of nowhere, on 3 weeknights,
Mm-hmm.
get back in the vibe of things,
But
it would be fun. I mean, and I personally would always love to be more involved in the local, regional kind of, stuff anyway. Than, for the reasons we kind of said earlier. It's just like the bigger you get, the tighter the restrictions become, and the more narrow I think the expectations are. But yeah.
And what about fans for you? Like, for me being in bands and stuff, as bands grew or got bigger, I thought, people that love your music and love the art is so rad, but like, I know we kind of talked a little bit, but like the attention part, like being on the art and the attention part being on yourself, like I didn't like the attention part on myself. I liked it on the art. So I started to, and I felt like I need to hide all the time. And I just wanted to hide.
No,
And
I
so,
feel that. Yeah, completely. Yeah.
and we love you guys, we love the fans, but it's
Yeah.
like that's I sometimes people don't understand that like, we got to keep our sanity too,
Yeah.
you know.
Well, and I think the biggest thing for me that I've come to realize, is like I'm just an ordinary person at the end of the day. And like, other people for one reason or another may not see me that way, but it's like I feel like that's the hardest battle I have to win when I meet fans sometimes. It's like, dude, I go home and watch Netflix and, like eat pizza just like
Yeah.
everybody else. Like I don't wake up in the morning and like levitate off the bed and my pants put themselves on or something like that. It's just like I'm just an ordinary guy in so many ways. I mean, probably more ordinary than some ordinary people. I don't know if there is such a thing, but it's the idea that, and coming from that standpoint, that it's like we're all just people. We're all just human beings. We're all trying to find our way. None of us, in my experience, the people that think that they have it figured out are the ones who seem to know the least, but are most convinced of it. It's like, I know where I'm going and you should go there too. It's like, I don't know, like,
All right.
and it's when sometimes people, especially when they see you as a figure like that, or something that I think it's something, people see it as you've achieved something, you've figured something out, you've know how to put yourself out there or be on a stage. And it seems like, that's something that a lot of people just can't imagine themselves doing or can't, like I can't imagine myself diving in shark infested waters, like I can't imagine like cliff diving off a 200. I don't know why I'm so nautically themed right now. I do have a fear of heights and water, but so I guess that makes sense,
Me too,
but
man.
like there's the other things that people do, I'm never going to be a star NFL running back or something.
Yeah.
Like there's other things that people do that are incredible, and I think most of us, if we look hard enough, have that capacity within us as well. Like I think that potential to do incredible, like that's the thing that still excites me about going forward and making art. I think in a lot of ways is finding out more about like not what I want to tell people or like what I want them to understand, but more about like what am I trying to understand? Like where am I on my journey? What am I exploring? And how can I share that with other people in a way that creates more of a space that we all can benefit from, like, I don't know. I think I haven't really listened a ton to David Bowie's Black Star album, the one that before he died. I've listened to it a little bit, but I think about that sometimes, like, what's the mentality, or Johnny Cash's like albums that he did towards the end of his life, like not that I'm fixated on death or something, but just that as these people kind of moved further into different stages of their careers, I just lost my train of thought. Damn it.
It's fine. Let me see if I can help you. You're just talking about you're talking about the art. You're talking about where it's going as you get older and what you're writing about, what you're singing about.
I guess. Oh yeah. I guess. Yeah. So what I was kind of trying to say is just, I feel like they're thinking more about, there's a different approach, like I'm not trying to make something for me. I'm trying to make something for something bigger, something to be left behind, that when people hear it, don't necessarily think about me personally, or wonder about who I am or how I did this or how I sung a certain thing, but like the art itself is, I don't know, I mean, like it kind of seems like the natural conclusion to the process, is that because I don't have kids, and so it's like songs are the closest thing that I kind of have to kids, and it's like as they, they're growing, they're coming into their own, it becomes about them, it's not really about me anymore. It's about creating this thing and putting it out there and it having a life of its own, and seeing where it wanders off to. And like, so it's just, I'm really excited about that process of exploring that kind of side of things a little bit more, and just, being a part of the artistic environment you know, and a component of it, but really trying to just, you know, plant the forest, you know, not be the tree, I guess, if you will. But
Yeah, dude, no, that's awesome, man. Dude, everything you just said is like, it's so right on. And that's, I mean, that's what we need is art, man. We need that. I mean, it's a thing to, do you ever feel too, like, I mean, I think you guys, I mean, you're a kind of like a conduit of something bigger too. So like but sometimes that's a lot of um it's a lot of pressure. It feels really heavy, even just that itself, because like you're saying, I'm just a normal dude, but you do have a wonderful voice. And I mean, you're, again, man, I don't want to make it weird, but you're one of my.
You have a great voice too, dude. I listened to some of your stuff today.
You.
I wasn't like completely out of the loop here, you know. But yeah, no, it was. You have some great stuff going on. Awesome.
Thank you, man.
I listened to, what was I listening to?
If you don't remember the name, it's fine.
No, the Bad Shepherd. That was pretty cool.
Oh, that's chapter 14 days.
Moth and Rustone, yeah. So that was on my, with the featuring Matt
Geisy, yeah. Those are back in the day, man. That's when I used to scream, and I don't know how to scream anymore. I
was gonna actually ask. I was gonna say, you know, like, because that's one of those things where I've had friends who've asked me about it, and they're like, "Can you do it?" And I'll like try to do it for a second. I'm like, ugh, and I just start coughing.
Yeah, dude, I used to do it all the time. My wife and I will watch or listen to something from back in the day. I'm like, how the fuck did I scream like that? Like, I don't even know how to do it anymore, you know?
That's the real gritty stuff. Like, I never really spent a lot of time on, and I was really confused. Like, I don't know. I was like, can people that do that also sing clearly? Like, it just, because every time I tried, it was like one or the other. It's like, okay, as soon as you've done this, you're done singing for the night. You know, like there's no more singing after you go. You know? So, well,
I mean, I know there's ways of doing it.
Yeah. You know, like there's a correct way to do it, and some people obviously do, but like it was not something I ever learned. You know, and I was like, well, leave that over here to the people who seem to be really good at that, and you know, yeah.
No, dude, that's how I was too, man. Like I screamed in a way that wasn't proper, so it was like, you know, like yelling like you're angry or something, and so I blow out my voice usually like in like 4 songs, and then try to sing the clean parts, and then you're like, ah! You know, but yeah, but thanks for checking out that shit though. That's cool, man, that you listen to that. But I mean, I would, you know, what I was. I mean, I guess going with that too, with what we're saying as like salutations. Oh yeah. You know, from living as ghost with buildings as teeth.
Yeah. Anyone can remember that title. That's impressive.
it's rad. But dude, that's like one of my favorite songs of all time. And like you're not grinding, you're not singing the highest thing ever. The music's not really the craziest. But like that's one of those songs that like for me, but you know, like I U2's With or Without You is a song I'll listen to the rest of my life. Like that song will never get old to me.
I know.
If I'm feeling a certain way, I'll be like, oh, salutations. Like I just want to hear that song. And so I'm just saying for you, like I know you like you brought up Feather Gun and like but people that, you know, listen to you guys and listen to you and like are, you know, fans of your voice and fans of the band, like even if you guys did shit like that, like I know I'm good with it, dude. Like no worries, dude. Like I'm good with it. That's like one of my favorite songs of all time. So
thank you. And that's that's actually one of the ironically kind of one of the I think I started that one. So there's a brief period where I wasn't in the band from like 2013 to 2012 to 2014, somewhere around there. Like it was maybe like a little over a year and a half or something like that, where I was kind of gone. And I think I started working on Salutations when I actually was kind of on my own. And then eventually, you know, so I think I had some kind of initial idea or like a verse or something. And then I ended up rejoining the band and finishing it. But that was kind of one of the rare ideas that I kind of started on my own. That little background kind of ding 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 whatever kind of thing, you know, was just something that I came up with and was singing over in my apartment. And then I, brought it to the guys and they added a bunch of stuff and it became a real song, But so it's definitely something that can be done. And it's like I just gotta get my ass in gear and make some stuff, it's I don't know. I just always struggle. Like I said, a lot of it's technical for me. Like I want to have like a separate room where I can just put all my stuff and have it set up, and my cat's not going to go chew on anything. I'm not find that my new headphone cable has been severed in half, or something.
Well, dude, I mean, if like salutations, that's what I mean. I know you got Rishloo, but like if you started that on your own, man, and that's a taste of things you can do on your own. Like again, like we want to hear stuff from Rishloo, obviously.
Yeah.
Like, I've listened. My wife and I will listen like with headphones and just like pick out like, okay, what's Sean doing here? What's David, what's Jesse doing here? And like each one of you guys is, in your own right are just amazing. But like, if that's something you did on your own, like, you might want to.
Well, let's start.
You might want to, started. I mean, I'm just saying, you got some good shit, man.
I appreciate it.
So.
Thank you.
But dude, we haven't talked really about UAPs or UFOs. No. I mean, how long were you going here? We're already over an hour. I mean, we can. Could you talk like maybe for like 20 more minutes or something like that? Are you chilling?
Yeah, I'm just hanging out. Have anything going on tonight? So we can talk about UAPs if you want.
Like what? So what? How are your like where are you at with this shit? Like, I know. Did you know about the UAP hearing? Did you see any of that? Like in the congressional hearing or anything?
So just kind of like how up to date am I?
Yeah.
So I would say I'm like, I don't know, the rough number that comes up to mind is I'm like 75% kind of caught up with things. Like I saw the first Gorish, what's that, Neil, I can't remember how you say his last name, Gorsuch or Neil, the guy who's one of the whistleblowers. I can't remember how to say his name now. I want to say it's
Grush. David Grush.
David Grush. Yeah, sorry.
They say Grush or Grush, one of those.
Grush, yeah. So I saw some of the clips from the hearing, like his first congressional hearing, I think.
Yeah.
And I have kind of followed what came out of when they finally got the skiff. I knew they were trying to get a skiff. I know that they didn't really get what they wanted out of that, but they got some kind of indications, but it's kind of always, that seems to be the narrative that I hear all the time, is it's always like, it's very incremental.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of it is like, seems to be just complete fluff. Like, oh yeah, we found out this thing that's kind of essentially meaningless, but it's a step in the right direction, like, well, we somebody said that there's stuff going on. So at least now we know that somebody actually said that stuff is happening, but like, it's this like slivers of progress, that we're kind of getting right now on any actual kind of confirmation about what is really happening.
From our government though, like it's like our they've been, if you guys have been lying about it this long, then like why should we even trust what you're saying, kind of thing. That's kind of where I'm at too. But I don't, where are you at with it? Like, where do you think about the hearings and all that shit?
I mean, well, just like the government side of it, or just
the government side of it.
Your own
thoughts.
No, I think that there's, man. So I started, I was interested in this stuff when I was young. So I was, when I would go to the library, I'd get books on UFOs and ghosts and Bigfoot. And,
it's not like Tom DeLonge, man. That's what Tom DeLonge.
Yeah. So that's just when I was a kid, that's what I'd go check out from the library, and I'd read all that just weird extraterrestrial. What do they call the ghost stuff? Like not metaphysical. Paranormal. Yeah. So I was always kind of really interested in that. I did have my own weird experience when I was
going to ask you, that's one of the questions. Tell me.
So when I was really, really young, and it's one of those things where it's like, it's so bizarre that you're like, could my brain have just invented this somehow? And like, I just am, I think it's a memory, but it was just something that I imagined. I don't know, like it's one of those things, because I was so young. I was like in a crib. I remember being in a crib in the first house that we lived in when I was little. My little brother wasn't even born yet. So I must have been, he was born, I was like 4.5, I think, you know. Um, and I vaguely remember it being like Christmas time or like the holidays. I have no idea if that's the case or not. I know that I think it was cold out, and I'm standing at, you know, in my crib, and I had a window, and I'm looking out the window, and it was early in the morning, and kind of over in the distance across, there's kind of, you know, a lot of just big evergreen trees across the street. We kind of lived out in the woods basically at this point. It was like a, you know, we had other houses around, but it was just kind of one street with, you know, 15 houses on, you know, 7 on either side or something like that. And then mostly just out in the woods. And so there was kind of something way off in the distance, just, you know, what now I see as like the silver kind of orbs, you know, or whatever, not really or orbs, but they're more of a disc, I guess, you know, elliptical shaped. Um, and it was just kind of hovering there, and then it just kind of, you know, disappeared off into the distance, and that was it. You know, so it was nothing crazy like, you know, abduction story or anything like that. But it's what weirds me out about it is that I have this distinct memory from a time in my life where I don't really remember anything else. You know, I don't remember a lot about being 4.5 years old, you know, but I remember, or 4, whatever I was at the time. But I remember that, you know, and so it's always just kind of stuck with me as this bizarre, you know, this really strange event that happened in my life. And it wasn't scary at the time. I don't remember, you know, being afraid of it or anything like that. Or, you know, there wasn't like a sense of dread or foreboding, but just, oh, there's this thing and there it goes. And, you know, so yeah, but government wise,
Wait, can I ask you before you get into the government?
Oh, yeah, sorry. Yeah.
No, that because that's such a crazy thing to remember, and saying that you remember it. Because I've read many things and heard, you know, interviews and stuff where people talk about consciousness with UFOs.
Yeah.
Or whatever these fucking things are. And they look like technology, they look like craft, but it affects people in a way that they will always remember it. Or they see it and then there's a profound like life change, or like some crazy thing happens. And that actually is what happened with me when I saw something. Like it kind of changed my way of thinking. But the fact that you can remember it at that young of an age, like that's, I mean, that right there it's pretty wild, man.
That in and of itself, because it's like, again, like I barely, like, what do I, like, I'm trying to remember like what my first memories of my brother are, you know, and it's like, because I was so young then, and it's like I kind of remember holding him when he was born, you know, vaguely, you know, but I mean, like I said, I was like 4, so that I, you know, remember anything, and something kind of so distinct like that is just, you know, it's always been a little odd to me. But
and there's been nothing ever since. Have you had anything paranormal ever since then?
I mean, there was, you know, the only other 2, and they're not really, you know, extraterrestrial related. The only other 2 things in my life that I remember as kind of being distinctly unusual, and they're again like kind of nothing burgers in my opinion in a lot of ways. Like, one was when I was a little bit older than that, I remember having an experience where, you know, people talk about like astral projection.
Yeah.
I bounced onto my bed. Like, I was like half asleep. I was probably like, I don't know, 5 years old, 6 years old. And I definitely had this sensation of like falling out of the air and bouncing. And you know, woke me up. And I don't know, it's another one of those things where it's like, could you have just imagined it somehow? I don't know, you know, but like that was pretty weird. And then the only other one was like a weird premonition thing that happened when I was about 18. I was driving with a friend, or following a friend on we were driving somewhere on his birthday party, and I had one of his friends with me that I didn't really know. And we pull up to this stop sign, it was foggy out, and I was like, oh, I feel like something weird's gonna happen. And she's like, what are you talking about? And we turned, and right as we turned, like these deer ran across the road, and we almost hit them. Like, so that was like like the weirdest things that have happened to me, and none of them are really that crazy. You know, I wish I had like an awesome, like, I have a weird, you know, metal thing in my head that I don't know where it came from, but unfortunately, you know, I can melt objects with my mind.
Bend the forks, like or the spoons or whatever they're doing.
Yeah, the Matrix style.
Well, so it's like with you were talking about your thoughts on the government or whatever. I mean, like that when you said ET too, like
Yeah.
like David Grush, the whistleblower, he said that these necessary, like, because that's the thing I keep seeing in the news right now, and it's like because the news is really covering it now, which is wild.
Oh,
Seeing all these news clips,
the fact that it's actually on the news is kind of something.
It's something totally different, And for me, and I was never into it. I wasn't like you. I wasn't getting. I always like I've said this before on the show, but I've had like friends in the past would say I saw something or talk about whatever, and I'd be like, oh, okay, bro.
Yeah, whatever.
And then that 2017, glowing auras and black money, the New York Times article came out, and then that really got me interested. And I saw the videos that the Pentagon confirmed.
Those were the ones like from the Navy, the Navy like F-14s or whatever it was.
Yeah, I think it's F-14 or F-18, F-18.
I think they fly the Hornet.
Yeah, and those got me like more into it or whatever. But I've been hearing that even in there's so much to talk about, but
you could this rabbit hole.
But they're saying non-human intelligence instead of ET or or others or whatever, because they don't know if it's from here, they don't know if it's from our oceans, they don't know if it's something that's been here since before humans were around, and now they're showing up because we got nukes, and they're like, hey, So what are your thoughts on that? Like, what do you think?
So I guess like to the government piece for starters, like I feel like any information we get from any major source, whether it's government or media or any independent person can just make shit up and say things too, so really any source should face a great deal of scrutiny, I think, when we talk about these topics, because there's a vested interest. Everyone could have a vested interest in being malicious or misdirecting or exaggerating their own version of events, because it's all so speculative at this point, and where things could be going. And so from when we think about the government, I think about, okay, like if Roswell really happened, and at the time let's assume that was one of their first earlier interactions with a UAP of some kind. Yeah. So they weren't very sophisticated yet. Their methodology was just, oh shit, we need a story. We'll say it was a weather balloon, make everything disappear, threaten the shit out of anyone that might potentially talk about it or make them disappear, maybe, and then that was just, it was a very blunt response to the problem. They just had to make it go away, and they figured out a way to do that. And then as time went on, obviously they're learning from this experience, and they're trying to, every iteration when they have some kind of something that makes it into the public view, they want to control that story in some capacity. So then it gets to the point where, these things start to become more widely.
Wait, what's his name?
This is Summer. She's
Summer.
Like the season. Yeah. Right. Yeah.
Oh, hey, Summer.
You feeling neglected?
Oh, she sees me. Hi. Meow.
Why are you interrupting my perfectly scheduled evening of activities? But
sorry, I cut you off.
Yeah. She'll probably be a big pain in the butt the whole time, but we'll see. Hopefully she'll be kind of nice about it.
But you were saying as things progress, like from Roswell or
so they're going to learn, they learn from their mistakes. And so then we get to the point where when I was a kid, I remember reading about things like Project Blue Book and stuff, and some of these old books that I would find. And, obviously we now know that there were things like the testing of the SR-71 and the F-117 stealth aircrafts that were happening in Area 51 around that time. So there's probably, they had a legitimate reason to manipulate the UFO dialogue for that too, because they were, to the average observer, no one's going to know the difference. In 1982, how does anyone know what an F-117 is versus a UFO? It is a UFO. It is a UAP at that time.
It looks weird as hell. Yeah, they're like, what is that shit?
Yeah. So they've got a vested interest in manipulating the narrative and allowing it to exist. Or there becomes a point where you're like, hey, we can't hide this anymore. People are going to talk about it. So we can't just ridicule everyone and just act like they're all crazy. We have to kind of start folding this narrative in some way. And now I think we've kind of, 25 years later, after I kind of first got interested, we're now seeing this where it is becoming, it is in the media and it is being talked about. And these are good things, and it's actually gotten to Congress and Congress is talking about it. And like, at the same time, if the trend continues, then this would also just be, the next kind of level of sophistication of that process. They're still controlling the narrative. They're still deciding what gets released and when, and how, how they want people to think about and perceive that information. It's just really hard because it's like, I think overall we're going in the right direction.
Yeah.
But they would still control that direction too. I don't see any reality where an actual, a whistleblower comes out and gives us the golden goose of UAPs and is like, here's the actual autopsy footage. Like, here's, a sample of alien, here's an alien arm or something, or a hand. Like, here is, here's the documentation that shows that all these people knew about it. Here's how it connects to the black, the government funding, where it came from. Like, there's the idea that we're ever going to get this holy grail reveal of like the truth and like everything finally comes out. I don't know. Like, I feel like eventually this just becomes, their way of disclosure is just that it eventually becomes folded into our daily lives. And at some point, to the point where eventually, I don't know, 2 or 3 or 4 or 10 generations from now, when they're like, okay, the grays are just going to become visible now and you're going to see them all the time. People are like, all right, well, whatever. I've been hearing about them for my entire life. Like, it's just been this background noise that I've, I remember my grandparents thought they were like boogeymen or something. But like, if you're playing the long game of like generational disinformation or information manipulation, like, you don't need us, like, we're right where you want to be. If you eventually do want to reach a point where there is full disclosure and no one cares, like, because and I guess where I would go with that is if it is, there is some really sinister motive for that to happen, like, I don't know. I guess at some point it becomes more efficient for everyone to know the truth and just not care about it. But I don't know. I wrestle with when you start to go down your own rabbit holes, you have to rationalize them in some fashion, and as I start to ask my own questions, I'm like, well, why would you not just do this or do that? And so I think it's, I don't know. I think that there's probably, like I said, I guess I think the arc is going in the right direction, but there's only one direction it's ever going to be allowed to go. Like, whatever we're getting shown is what we're supposed to be shown. And I think even like people like Tom DeLonge, for example, are, it's interesting to me that he's involved in this at all. Like, if he had like Elon Musk money, it would be a different story. He would be so wealthy that he could just come in and like manipulate, have his, I don't know, involve himself in the game in a much bigger way. Like, Tom DeLonge's obviously a financially successful guy, but I don't think he's like going to go buy off, top level guys at the CIA or something like that. He's not.
But he's been working with guys from the CIA, which is so weird. And it's like, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
No, you're good. No, you're good.
It's just, the whole thing is just so weird to me, and so like, he's got Jim Semivan, which was like, I think he worked in the CIA for 25 years, and he's like one of the special counsel or something with CIA. And then he's got Hal Puthoff, if you go back in time, he did the Stargate program for the CIA, which I think they were doing like a lot of the telepathy or
that was the Goldfish Y Files has Mount, it's like Mount McKinley or not, no, that's not Mount, it's Mount something or other in Alaska, where they're like they were using, they were like trying to use people to mentally project themselves to like spy on places.
Yeah. Remote viewing and that whole
Remote
thing.
viewing, exactly.
Yeah. And so like he's got these guys, like he had them on and he had Lou Elizondo for a while and Chris Mellon. They're not with him anymore. But like that was super weird. And then when the I should know this stuff better, but like it's cool to just talk. That's the whole point about BrewFOs, is just to try to like kind of have a bridge for people that aren't interested in this to maybe be like, what the hell's going on here?
Nobody has all the information anyway.
Yeah, but it's just weird, that he's involved with these people. And then when those leaks happened with like Hillary Clinton's emails, one of the things that was in there was that Tom DeLonge was talking to her and John Podesta, which is, I guess, John Podesta. Really? Now, Biden just hired John Podesta to be like his guy for something too. It just happened.
He's like an NSA guy at one point or something, I think. Right?
Yeah, he's something like, I'll put it up, everybody, like whenever I reference stuff. And by the way, there'll be episode notes and anything me and Drew are talking about here. I'll throw up a,
trying to decipher what that weird ass thing Drew was talking about.
Yeah. Well, we'll throw up shit so you know what we're talking about. But that was weird to me too, just knowing like, oh man, like everyone's like, why is Tom DeLonge, talking to Podesta and Clinton?
Yeah.
And I think they were thinking if Hillary became president, they were going to have like a disclosure plan then.
Right.
And then are you familiar with just in this last the National Defense Authorization Act that just got passed? It was Chuck Schumer and then Senator Rounds, which is a Republican. Chuck Schumer is a Democrat, and then
right.
Is it Mike Rounds? Yeah, Mike Rounds. I should know this, but so that's two different sides of the aisle, and it was called the Disclosure Act of 2023, and it didn't get passed in there. Some of it got passed, but to me, seeing that and seeing Chuck Schumer like talking like, hey, if there's non-human, craft, the American people should know, and I'm like, what the fuck is happening?
Yeah.
It's like I see Chuck Schumer talking about stuff all the time, and all of a sudden he's saying UAP on TV. I'm like,
it's what I mean, and I don't know, it's I mean, because then then I guess the question becomes, who are they? What are they? Why are they here? Those kinds of things. Because let's just assume, for the sake of argument, that disclosure is legit and it is proceeding the way it's supposed to, and the things that we're hearing are at least truthful to the extent that we can imagine them to be, I suppose. If it is accurate and they are actually here and they are present with the frequency that they seem to be, I mean, like all these videos that people take on their cell phones now, let's assume half of them are BS, just for the sake of argument. That's still a lot of videos. So if they're here, and I the Y Files has talked about some of this stuff too. Like some of the fun theories that I like are that the Greys and the whatever the other NHIs are actually future versions of us that are traveling to the past to like borrow our genetic material because they messed something up with their genetic manipulation thousands of years in the futures, and there's some kind of war between human progeny happening in 10,000 years from now or something like that, and that's why they're that's one of the ones that I've heard. Another one is that there's two different kind of types of aliens. There's like the Greys are actually more like clones, automatons, who are managed or whatever, directed by another type of more physical actual entity that is a more, I guess, more organic being and not just a recreation of something, and which would like a lot of people have said, when, or at least what I've heard is like in abductions, that it's never really a malicious activity. It's just like you're a scientific experiment. You're a sample that was collected, and they perform whatever test series that they selected to run on you, and then they put you back, and that's that. And people come back with weird fractures and shit that they can't explain, or their bones. cut in half and put back together. And like, so if the Greys are just, clones or automatons or something like that, what are the other ones? How many of them are they? Are they even around? Like, are the Greys just like some like the janitorial staff that somebody left behind and forgot about, and they're just running on autopilot? Like,
Yeah.
we don't have the technology or sophistication yet to figure out how to shut them down, or we're afraid to do it because their parent civilization is going to be like, hey, you shut down a resource harvesting operation, what the hell, and come back and see what's going on. Like, there's so many, or they're extra dimensional, like, and then where do you even begin with that? Like, how do I, okay, there's no door lock for extra dimensional beings, so I don't think most people are prepared to handle the possibility that there's just shit around us all the time, or what's the other one, like parallel realities, we're all pages in a book that are, and if you flip one page, you're in a completely different, place or whatever, all slices of existence that, 5 minutes ago, I made a different comment than the comment I actually made, and we split off the multiverse, But and I also think too, like in the larger conversation about aliens and all that stuff, like I find it odd that things like the Marvel universe are picking up things like the multiverse is becoming a commonly used terminology in popular culture now. And of course, in a comic book sense, like it's a silly thing to think about. It's like, okay, yeah, it's a great narrative device for somebody to write a comic book concept around. But is it, just, I mean, I don't know, maybe it's just coincidental that these kind of weird things are becoming more common in our culture. But like, we're, I don't know if you watch any of that Marvels, but I watched like the Loki show that came out or whatever. Or, I mean, the time travel stuff was like mind-boggling, and some like I had to go watch a couple of them again because I was just like, how are they gonna, so we're now dealing with these themes of like surreality. Is that a word? I don't know. I'm probably
I like it. Surreality. Surreality. Maybe.
And alternative dimensions and things traveling from across the cosmos to come visit us, or maybe they're here, or maybe we're them, or like these were weird ass books that I checked out at the library when I was a little kid. They were off tucked away in some shelf somewhere that nobody else really cared about, and now it's like in Marvel, some extent, or at least in some kind of simplified, commercialized version of it. So I think it's just interesting to think about that stuff too, like what themes kind of start to show up in our culture that maybe weren't there before, and we're trying to kind of, is it part of a larger effort, conscious and intentional possibly, to try and prepare people for their reality not being what they think it is, or so.
And we'll see what happens to it. I wonder what if like what I've heard is, I've heard some people say it'll destroy religions, and I heard other people say that religions will be like, no, it's what we've been talking about the whole time. It's just they called it a name, like
I don't worry about religions ever. If any group in human history has done a good job of, how did you put it? Oh yeah, this is what we were talking about the whole time. Like, I mean, I don't know. I don't want to go down this crazy religion, but it's like, that's kind of like how the religious, or like the Catholic Church has existed for as long as it has. Is they just assimilate everybody else. I mean, they're the Borg of religion, if you will. It's like,
no, it's completely, dude. That's the best. That's the best description. The Borg of religion, man.
Like, we will take your rituals and make them our own, and it's like, now you're just a part of us. Like, but we want to go do. Well, you can, but now it's called Christmas. Like,
dude, can I? I want to. I say this to my family. I say this to my friends. I want to say it to you, but it's so weird, like, and people out there, if you're Catholic or whatever, I love you, I respect you. But
yes, I'm not trying to.
I'm just gonna. Yeah, sure. We're not shitting on you, but with that said, okay, the Roman Catholic Church, the Vatican, all right, they got 53 miles of shelving, right, with all these artifacts and scrolls and things. I heard Joe Rogan talking to Diana Pasulka recently. Check out that podcast if y'all, I'll put it up. But Diana Pasulka is, she's a professor of religious studies, and her books are amazing. But they were both talking about, like, when they went to the Vatican, they were bummed out because when they're going and looking around, like, just in the place the public can see, there's paintings and stuff from like Egypt and stuff, and there's no room to put it, so it's like covering other stuff that's behind other stuff and stuff setting on top of stuff. And they it was either I think it was Joe that said this, but he brought his kids, and he was like bummed out, and he was kind of bummed out. He's like, what the hell? And Dan Pasulka, I think, said it's like hoarding, it's like colonization hoarding.
Oh, dude, I can't imagine.
That's all it is. And everyone knows it.
Yeah. And the part that they saw was the coat closet. They let them into like, here's where you put your shoes and hang your freaking coat of the Vatican storage. Like, I can't, I mean, that, if you could go find a way to wander around in there for a while, like, just, and even if it's not, like just for the sake of argument, to separate out, let's assume we don't go looking for any supernatural, extraterrestrial type of stuff.
Forget about that stuff. Yeah.
Just for the sake of argument. Like, so let's just assume there's none of that in there, whatever.
Yeah.
The sheer volume of lost history in that place, of just human life,
history, world history, global history.
No one has access to, unless you're like one of, I mean, I don't even know how the access works. Like, is there one guy that can get to all of it? Are you like, is two guys assigned to aisles A through F, and two people are allowed to view G through J, whatever. I would imagine there's probably some form of compartmentalization, and you're not going to have one person who knows all the secrets of the Vatican wandering around, like, so do they even know what they have? Is there, and after all that time, like, how hard is it for, here's this scroll that was part of the set from 7,000 years ago, and somebody put it on the wrong shelf, and now we're missing this. It's actually still down there somewhere, but somebody put it in the wrong spot. So now we've got this gap in our history, if we have, the surrounding parts of it at all. But just, I can't, I wonder what stuff, like you say, like it's a hoarder's nightmare of colonization. Like, what is in there? Like, what did they, it's even just the innocuous stuff. Like, what if they have like ancient like clothes from the Aztecs or something like that?
They probably do, man.
That's what I'm saying. Yeah, sorry. It's like
worked up.
It's like just on a sheer, like, so, leaving all the extraterrestrial stuff out, just the sheer cultural theft, and denial of information to people is just got to be staggering, Dude,
and you can talk to I've talked to Catholic people too.
Yeah.
And they're like, like they know it.
Yeah.
Everyone knows it.
Yeah.
And it's weird. And I'm not saying like what happened on January 6th, like there needs to be an insurrection on the Vatican. I'm not saying anything like that. But what I'm saying is there should be like a committee, or there should be something, like, we have stuff for like war crimes globally, but like, you guys, this is ours. This is humanity's stuff, and only one place has it.
Well, and look at how, I mean, to kind of frame the difficulty of something like that happening. Like, consider all the countries that are trying to get stuff back from, like, just the British Museum, not the Vatican, just the museum. The British Museum is like, we know this kind of a key piece in the history of your civilization, and it's essentially priceless. But we've kind of had it for a while, so now we're not going to give it back. Like, and that's just those are people who know that it doesn't belong on them and haven't had it held on to it for thousands and thousands of years, but only hundreds, and they're not giving it up. It's a struggle to get access to that kind of get things back that belong to people. Like, I mean, I don't even know, how do you even do, and even if you did, in some crazy scenario, everybody goes storm the Vatican, like, where do we go? I don't like.
And we're not saying storm Area 51 or the Vatican.
None of this is incitement. don't.
No one's citing violent. We're
It's-
just
okay.
saying, everyone. Like
Yeah, a
it's
mob shows up. What do you even? Okay, now you've just got 53 miles of. I mean, I don't even want that because I'm like, people would touch everything.
yeah.
Oh, no, just
There needs to be like some type of like committee or something,
yeah, like the International Association of Librarians, goes down like that, and it's like, okay, you go on, like it's like jury duty. You get picked, all the librarians in the world go into a random pool. You go in, you're 2 weeks in the Vatican Library, you document all of the stuff that you found, and it all goes into some big public database somewhere. The Vatican's shitting themselves right now. They're like, that guy's gotta go. Take him out.
Dude.
Put him on the list for the next abduction. So just by the way, if I disappear, it was the Vatican got me.
That for me too, man. I mean, that's scary too. I mean, that's
I don't think a hard for that to happen, but yeah.
It's maybe a hard thing to talk about religion sometimes because there are some religious fanatics that want to hurt people. So again, that no disrespect to you guys, but it's like, what the hell is happening there? I mean, there's, and it's been, pretty much 2,000 years of this, and everyone, and that's the thing about the internet, Drew, is like with UAPs and with what we're talking about with the Vatican, or if anything happens, like now we're all connected, and that's the difference. Is now maybe there was a time in history before this, maybe there's like ancient civilizations that got to this point and they got wiped out. Who knows? But we're at this point now where like we can share stuff. If a dude gets kneeled on his neck for fucking 8 minutes. We all know it, and we're gonna go protest in the streets.
Right.
Fuck that shit.
Yeah.
And we see stuff that's happening now, like what's going on in Ukraine and Russia, and what's going on in Israel with Gaza. All this shit that's happening, we can all see it now. That wasn't that easy back then. Even 10 years ago, it wasn't as easy.
No, and I think to that point, it kind of comes back to that same, overall disclosure narrative that I think about, where it's like, have you heard of Marshall McLuhan? He was a journalist. I think he like a professor of journalism or something like that at some.
It's not striking bail. Maybe it's not striking.
I read his book years ago when I was like after high school. One of my friends got me into it. But he has this kind of famous book called The Media or Understanding Media. And
writing it down.
One of his famous quotes from that is that the medium is the message. And so, he was really trying to emphasize that, like, if you present something musically, it's different than you present something in a newspaper, or you present something in a TikTok, or you present something in these different formats are in themselves kind of biased towards presenting information in a particular way. And like one of the things, talking about earlier, YouTube and restriction and things like that, is with the ubiquity of everyone sharing, I think there's also a kind of interesting side effect of it encouraging homogeneity. Cat's trying to bite me over here.
Summer. Come on now.
No biting. But I think, so the reflex or the counterpoint to what you're saying is that there's a self-imposed kind of not censorship, but narrowing, I think, that kind of happens because everyone is aware of everyone else's narrative. And so people tend to align around certain things, I think.
Follow.
It isn't always the case that more people knowing about things creates more perspectives and more views, but rather that the more people that are aware of something kind of reinforce particular perspectives and views. So it can go either way, I think. Is just, and we don't necessarily get to control how that kind of goes, and which parts of something we say in this conversation can get reacted to by somebody else, and that'll get reacted to by somebody else, and 5 levels down the line, does it at all even represent the particular thing that we were talking about in the context of the conversation anymore? Does it become something else entirely? And no one did it on purpose. It wasn't like somebody sat down and we're gonna gradually play telephone with this video and see what happens. It just is the natural progression. So I really wonder to what extent we're ignorant of our own like the efficacy and the speed with which narratives change in the media these days, like because you could potentially hear one thing right now, and an hour from now, the whole narrative could have shifted. And that thing that you heard is now so small relative to the massive output of contradictory information that has come that it's buried. You can't even find it anymore.
Yeah.
Like a Google result that just gets no hits. So it just is effectively gone. Or I don't know. And again, I'm not an expert on how the internet works, so I'm not really saying like the data isn't there, but like it reaches a point where algorithmically no one sees it anymore. So even if it is there and no one's, if a tree falls in the forest and there's no one there to hear it, if information exists on the internet and no one can find it, doesn't matter that it exists, So I don't know. I think there's a weird interplay between we have so much content being created now, and everyone's content, especially the more closely aligned you are with other people. Like I was saying earlier, I watch a lot of these like martial arts guys, and they're all kind of just independent YouTubers too. It's not like, the experts of and not like I'm watching, I don't know, the highest, it's not like it's a bunch of professional UFC fighters doing YouTube channels. There's like one or two that are kind of like that, but it's mostly just like guys that are doing martial arts and they're kind of trying to improve and learn new things and they're exploring it. But super inspiring. It's great. And they've started to collaborate more too, which is really cool. You get to see them work with each other and support each other and help each other figure things out. And that's actually really one of the most fun parts of it, is watching all these guys collaborate together. But it's also, it would be really interesting. Actually, that would be a really cool video for a group like that to do is, have you noticed, what changes have you noticed in yourself since you started working with these other people? Like how has this altered the way you approach martial arts or the way and I think like for anyone following any topic, it's like music too. It's like the more in a band, the more you're around people, the more they influence your kind of particular way of doing things and your ideas and so forth. But maybe, I think it's kind of true of genres to an extent, like I think we've gone through periods of musical history where you'll hear like 3 or 4 bands that kind of move in a similar direction at roughly the same kind of time, and it's not to say that they're all the same or that they're just all ripping each other off or something like that. But I think that there's some kind of, the closer your association with people, the more influence you have on each other, and just the higher the likelihood that you're gonna move generally in the same kind of direction, I guess, but yeah.
No, dude, that's, man, that's good, dude. I want to say this too. We should probably wrap it up with it. But I mean, that was good, and
yeah,
I think this is a good time. But I just wanted to say let's bring it back to you and Rishloo. But like you guys, it seems like you guys are like a redwood that's like, it's not chopped down yet. It's still growing, and
it's been through a forest fire too, here or there.
It's been through a forest fire, but
the core of that tree is still. Did you ever watch that comedy stand up? The core of that tree is still alive.
No,
it's I can't remember. I think it's Ron White. He's the guy that like would smoke the cigar and always have like he was one of those redneck comedians for a while.
Yeah.
He had this story he was telling about a landscaper that came over and planted all these trees, and then they like looked all look dead, and the guy comes like pokes the tree and says, or drills into it. He's like, well, the core of this tree is still alive, and it's like, he's like, I don't care about the core of the tree, like I care what's happening. Sorry.
No. That's exactly right.
Yes. The redwood is, it's been through. It's still alive.
It's still alive, and it's
gored on the exterior.
Yeah, there's some scars on it, maybe whatever, but we're still coming to see it. We're still coming to look at it, and we still cut. We can look at. Yeah, I don't know what the analogy I'm going with this, but I'm just basically that's what came into my mind though. Is just like there's still this magnificent thing, and you're a part of it, and this was cool. Like I've talked about this before on the podcast, but like these are really hard for me to do. Like I get really nervous before, and I was anxious to talk to you, and like that whole thing, like we were talking about before, of like I the mystery of you guys was cool for me. I could have never talked to you guys.
We're on now, but yeah.
Yeah.
So.
But like, you know, like if like I love Aliens, and like if I mean the movie, if I watch James Cameron's making of Aliens, you know, it's gonna be, oh, that's how they made everything, and now I know how it works, and like I'm like, it's cool as hell, but like now I know how it's not as like
it takes something away from it a little bit.
Yeah. So I'm really glad I did this, and it didn't take away. It's just enhanced, and like you're such a cool fucking guy, and this was so fun.
Man. It's feelings mutual. It was a great chat. I enjoyed talking to you. Yeah.
And I think yeah, man, I'm stoked that you said yes, that you guys are still working on stuff. And do not be afraid to work on your own stuff. And I think other people would encourage that as well. Like we want to hear you, man. And don't be a stranger.
Yeah, definitely. I'd be happy to chat again sometime, you know, for sure. So
this was sick, dude. Thank you so much.
Oh, thank you. It was great talking to you, man.
Yeah, is there anything else you want to say before you go? That's it. We hit it all.
I guess no. I think, you know, we kind of covered all the bases. I hope, you know. I think so. You know, I could go on forever, but
no, me too, dude. Especially talking with UAPs with you, that was amazing.
Oh, dude, yeah, it's a good time. Well, I'd be down to do it again sometime. So
hell yeah. Well, thanks, Drew. Well, have a good night, and thanks for doing this, dude. All right.
Later. Bye.
Later.